So, good morning, kids. This will be our final module for your examinations. This is your reproductive system and its development. So, kids, first, one of the basic characteristics of living things is their ability to reproduce. This trait ensures the continuity of a species as new individuals are produced to replace those that die. So reproduction is thus needed in the perpetuation as well as the evolution of the species. So because you have your asexual and your sexual reproduction. Saan kinala ni asexual kag ni sexual reproduction, kids? I will summarize na lang para magets you dayon. Your sexual reproduction, kids, only has one parent. It splits, buds, or fragments. So these are its methods para mag-producing iyang offspring. Again, it only has one parent and they cannot search for mates. Ang iyang ways para magdamo siya, it splits, it buds, or in fragments. So in the later pages, discussed ako ano ng splits, buds, and fragments. To produce itself, two or more offsprings that are similar to itself. It is simple and rapid ang aton asexual reproduction. Next, we have your sexual reproduction naman, kids. It has two parents. Again, it has two parents. It involves the sperm and the egg. And it is fused to form a zygote. A zygote, kids, ano na siya? It develops into an organism that is similar to both parents but not identical to either one. So, ang zygote, kids, siya na isasulod sa inyong tiyan. Sa mga babae, for example, sila na isulod sa tiyan mo. Nga, pag introduce mo ng sperm, ma-fertilize ang imo egg. After na-fertilize, it produces a new life. So, amazing lang, diba? So, sexual reproduction has an advantage in that it promotes genetic variability by the possible combination of the genes of both parents. In some animals, sexual reproduction involves complex structural, functional, and behavioral processes that are regulated by hormones. O kids, sino sila mas namin? Of course, it is sexual reproduction because it promotes evolution and adaptation. Meaning, ang imo kids usually nga bata, mas namin kaysa sa imo parent because it has both the genes. Ang imo nga bata is similar to you but not identical. So what do I mean when I say similar siya and not identical? Because it has both the genes of the parents. It has similar characteristics sa parents, of course. But hindi siya identical because it only carries 50-50 of your genes, meaning 50% sa father and sa mother, or maybe 70% di si father or 30% si mother, but has both the genes of your mother and father. Meaning, mas nakuha ya ang mas nami nga genes ni mama hag ni papa, therefore it undergoes an evolution, meaning mas nami ya ang dala nga genes ni anak naton kaysa kay mama kag ni papa. Galing niya, ang kinalain naman niya kay asexual because it only has one parent. Isa lang gid siya kids ang iya parent, it cannot promote evolution. Why? Because it only reproduces something similar, identical rather to itself. Kung nag-split ang isa taka plant into another plant, ang iyan gyapon itubo pareho gyapon kay parent. Parent lang kay isa lang. So, isa lang kay asexual, duwaya ang parents kay sexual reproduction. So first, you have your asexual reproduction. Kids, asexual reproduction is found among simple forms of animals such as your protozoans, sponges, cnidarians, bryozoans, and a few others. You have three methods, kids, to have your asexual reproduction occurs. It is through budding, fission, and fragmentation. So first, budding, kids, discuss natin. Sponges, cnidarians reproduce by budding in which small parts of the body grows outwards, meaning ang small parts ng iya body nagapa tubo, pagwa, and develops into a new individual. After yung tubo, kids ma-produce sa into a new individual. Look at your picture. Ang letter A nga that is your budding. Meaning, kids, self-explore, pag bud yan na, kids, nag-form siya sa new organism. The bud may remain attached to the parent and become a part of the colony. So, ang ini, kids, ma-remain sa patient, sa imong nga parent, after mo ni kids, ang topic yan that is now a new organism, ang mga linya-linya sa babaw, or ang nyari naman sa dalo mo, tanya na, ang nagwa siya outwards, kids. That is a new organism, but it is still a part of a parent, but now a new organism that is budding. Number 2 naman, kids, fission. Fission is common among protozoans such as your amoeba, paramecium, and etc. Meaning mga bacteria and small or microorganisms reproduce through fission. This involves the division of the body of the parent into two parts, each of which develops into a new individual similar to its parents. The division is either transverse or longitudinal. So kids, mga batang fission, kung ihligay nun ko para mag-get si kids, nagapihak lang siya into two. Nagapihak into two. Have you remembered sang midterms natin in yung cell cycle? The cell cycle natin, kids, they reproduce through binary fission. Kids, meaning the split siya into two individuals. So this is still fission. Ang letter B na to na reproduction through asexual reproduction. And it reproduces through fission, meaning pagpihak ka, kids, ang isa na lain ng organism, ang una kay nakadua, bata yan na. So, it is also another form of reproduction sa asexual reproduction. Next and lastly, sa asexual reproduction is your fragmentation. Kids, involves the breaking of the body into two or more parts and each fragment being able to regenerate the entire individual. This is commonly found among echinoderms, flatworms, and nemertine worms. For example, starfish which prey on oysters could still develop into complete individuals even if chopped into two pieces and thrown back into the sea, as is usually done by fish farmers. So kids, in fragmentation, kids, you just split them into fragments, and those fragments, kids, regenerate to form new organisms that are identical to the parent. Kids, for example, ang starfish, hindi ko no, ginpihak mo siya into 2 or 3 kabilog na parts, ginpihak mong kamot sa isa, ginpihak mong tiil sa isang starfish, ginaway na siya sang tiil kag kamot, but in time, matubo ng liwat ang sa parent, ang iya kamot kag tiil, tapos ang ginpihak mo to kamot man kag tiil, ang kamot ang ginpihak mo develops into a new starfish, and ang tiil ng ginpihak mo gin-develop man into a new starfish. So the fragments itself become new organisms. That is fragmentation. The fragments, again, the fragments, naging chop na to, nagiging new organism. So that is how they reproduce. After yapihak sang isa, nagiging new organism. So again, anong tatlo na to nga reproduction nga type sa sexual reproduction? Fission, budding, and fragmentation. Ang letter A, B, kag siya is just a visual representation on how they reproduce. Next, you have your sexual reproduction. Kids, sexual reproduction involves eggs and sperms. The production of your sperm is called spermatogenesis. Check your D. And the production of your ova is called your oogenesis. Spermatogenesis, the production of your sperm, and ova naman, oogenesis. The egg, usually is large and non-motile, stores nutrients needed to support the development of the kids. The sperm is usually small and motile, and is equipped with a long flagellum. Ang long flagellum, it is responsible for its motility and is needed to propel itself towards egg. So, ang dako, si ova, ang gamay, si sperm. So, after a fusion of the egg and sperm occurs, fertilization now then undergoes. And as a result, zygote new is formed. So that is how sexual reproduction commonly occurs. Pag sulod ni sperm kay egg, ang zygote ma-form. After pag-form ng zygote, kids, after sa fertilization, pag sa zygote, it is now a new life. So, do ka beautiful sa sexual reproduction. So, how do you do your sexual reproduction? Of course, kids, kung sa aton sa mga mamas through sex, diba? Fertilization could either be external or internal. First, external fertilization, kids, simple na siya. For example, you have your fish. Ang fish naton, kids, gapagwa ang babae nga fish, ang egg sa tubig. And si male naman, kids, nag-ejaculate sang sperm sa tubig, kids. After the sperm and the egg meet outside sa water, kumbaga na part na, pagtapik ni sperm kay egg, fertilization occurs, but not inside the body of the fish, but outside of its body. Pagsulod, pagtapik na ni sperm kay egg, matabo na dahil ang ginatawag na fertilization. After fertilization occurs, kids, a zygote of the fish is formed. So, kids, ano lang ang external fertilization? Fertilization occurs outside the body of an organism, not inside. Okay? Wala na simple explanation yun. On the other hand, ang internal fertilization naman natin, kids, simplihon talang gid para sa inyo. Your fertilization occurs inside the body of an organism. For example, kita nga mga tao, kids, do you think we are in the external fertilization or internal? Of course, we are in the internal fertilization. Why? Because gabusong niya ang mga tao, right? Pregnancy occurs sa humans. So, when pregnancy occurs, ang zygote nag-form sa sulod sang lawas. So, if sulod sang lawas, ang mga pregnancy nag-occur, therefore, it is now internal fertilization. No egg is formed outside, but instead, it is formed inside our bodies. Okay? So, external fertilization sa sagwa, internal fertilization occurs inside the organism. Okay? So, you have your variations in reproduction. You have your metagenesis, hermaphroditism, and parthenogenesis. So, kids, first metagenesis involves both sexual and asexual stages in the same individual. For example, the obelia has a polyp stage that gives rise by budding to a medusa stage. The motile medusa produces gametes that reproduce sexually by producing a new generation of polyps. But kids, ang inyo kids nga, polyp stage, sexual na siya. Ang inyo naman na medusa stage, asexual na. So what means sa metagenesis? Involve siya not only asexual reproduction but also sexual reproduction. After yung polyp stage, medusa stage na siya, nagiging asexual na siya because it reproduces now on its own. So, metagenesis involves both asexual and sexual reproduction. Huh? Next, you have your hermaphroditism. Kids, magkabag mo hermaphrodite. Ano siya? Of course, it has both the male and female sex cells. Hermaphrodite pala, kids. Sa Greek lore natin, hermaphrodite has both the male and the female reproduction. So, hermaphroditism, of course, now, means kami ara siya both the male and female sex cells. So, a single individual produces both eggs and sperms. Again, it produces both eggs and sperms, which are normally produced by two separate individuals. But no, ang iniya kids may ara siya sang egg kag sang sperm. Most hermaphrodites do not self-fertilize, producing the testes and ovaries at different times. So, for instance, ang ato na oysters kids, for 1 year, it only produces sperm. And for the other year, now, it produces egg cells. So, kids, ma-check nyo kami sperm na siya kag egg, maka-reproduce by itself, hindi. Yes, it can reproduce by itself because it has two different types of sex cells. So, after reproduction occurs, that is now your hermaphroditism because your oyster has two sex cells and can't reproduce by itself. Next, we have your parthenogenesis. Is a form of asexual reproduction in which an unfertilized egg develops into an adult. It is common among insects, some crustaceans, and mollusks and reptiles. The animals are mainly females that reproduce parthenogenetically and usually for several generations. Adaptation for survival during the times of stress or when there is a serious decrease in its population. That is your parthenogenesis. So, kids, in simple terms, ang parthenogenesis naman natin, kids, is asexual reproduction in which ang unfertilized egg natin, meaning ang unfertilizing egg can develop into an adult. Common siya usually sa ants, sa bees, ang may mga colony na kids, that is your parthenogenesis because ang unfertilizing egg may kids nagabuhi into an adult. Best example are our ants and our bees because they have the queens and they have their workers and the queens just lay eggs para magtubo into an adult insect. Meaning may ants na siya. Ang ants nga na, they develop into workers. Next, we have your male reproductive system. Direnta sa lalaking reproductive system. So, kids, tandaan nyo lang di sa male reproductive system. Ang tanan nyo naka-bold letters. Tapos, pasunod nyo sa in order. So, the pair male gonads are ang male gonads, kids, these are called your testes. They are located in your scrotal sacs, which are descended from the body cavity where the lower body temperature favors spermatogenesis inside the testes. The sperm develops in the highly coiled tubules, the seminiferous tubules. From these tubules, sperm pass through your tiny ducts called your vas deferentia into the called epididymis into a single duct through the vas deferens. So, before you get confused, kids, amo na siya ang iyang cycle on where your sperm develops and goes into. Ha? So, pasunod din kung diin siya halin, kag diin siya pakatulog, basaan niyo lang. As I am not going to force you to memorize. Basahan nyo lang, basta, ang importante sa kids, you understand the ingali ng inyong sperm, especially sa atin, yung mga lalaki, di ba? As the sperm passes through your epididymis, cellular debris are removed, thus enhancing the fertilizing capacity of the sperm. The vas deferens then joins in the opposite from the other testes and enters our penis, a common duct, the urethra, which will duct both the sperm and your urine. The sperms are transferred for the female reproductive tract by the penis. So again, kids, ang urethra na ito ng buho na dampi which conducts our sperm and the urine. Sa tandaan yung malaki kids, ang alagyan natin for our sperm and urine, isa lang yan. Unlike sa females, nga lain ang for sexual intercourse, lain man ang alagyan for ihip. Okay? So there are three accessory exocrine glands that open into the male reproductive duct. Mga bagong kids, accessory na gland, it is just a small organ that functions for one time thing. Okay? The seminal vesicle which opens each vas deferens before entering the urethra. Next accessory naton nga exocrine gland is your prostate gland. Is a single fused gland lang. Your bulbourethral gland or your Cowper's gland found near the base of your penis, both of which secrete into the urethra. Secretion from these three structures contributes seminal fluid, which provides food for your sperm. Lubricate the ducts and counteracts acidity of the urine, thus it protects the sperm. Kids naman ang inyong bulbourethral gland. So this is the picture of where your penis is and where it goes from the seminal vesicle through your prostate, through the vas deferens to the bulbourethral gland. Magpasa na siya, katulad siya din ang imong ang imo din yung sperm into your penis and finally to your urethra and glands penis. So kids, your testes is responsible for production of your sperm and its protection is the scrotum and your epididymis skin. So that is your male reproductive system. Next, we have your female reproductive system. Female reproductive system naman natin, kids. Again, tandaan nyo lang kung ano ang naka-bold letters dire. Kids, ang malanip pa nakapasunod man Japon, ang iyang in order man Japon. The female gonads ovaries are situated in the pelvic region naman of the peritoneal cavity. The almond-sized ovaries alternately produce mature ovum on the average of once every 28 days and secrete female hormones. Muna, kids, every 28 days, you have your new ovum. Ovum or ova. Muna, kids, nag-iinit lawas yun because you excrete the old ova or ovum and have a new one kada period ninyo, kids, because dula nyo ang daan ng ovum and replace it with a new ovum. That is why your menstrual period occurs or gaabot ang inyo, kumbaga. The mature ovum is released into the body cavity and captured by the ostium of the fallopian tube or uterine tube. Fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube and after about 7 days, the developing egg is implanted na. After na naubras ang inyong itlog, wala kids, your gina-implant na siya, kids, into your uterus, a highly muscular organ lined by your mucous membrane. Its walls, your endometrium, is thickens every month in preparation for your possible pregnancy. Kids, gadako man na siya inyong endometrium para mag-prepare in case maging pregnant na kamo. So that is, kids, ang purpose kids sa ating menstrual cycle, mungkin na siya. The lower portion of the uterus is now the cervix. The cervix is a common site of your cancer in women, but this can be detected by scraping a portion of its routine Papa Nicolau test your pap smear. Kids, gina pap smear kamo kung gabusong kamo, okay? The cervix projects slightly into the bra. It serves as a receptacle for sperm, the part of the passageway through which the baby passes through during pregnancy. So that is, kids, ang pictures ng ato na female reproductive system. This is its illustration from your uterine tube, ovarian ligament, body of the uterus to your endometrium, muscular ball, are evidence kilid, kids, ang ovaries naton. And now, lastly, ang kapagwaya, that is your cervix. So, role of your hormones in reproduction, kids. Tandaan nyo lang, kids, if anong hormone ang ara sa lalaki and ara sa babae. It is important for you, kids, to know nga ang laki may lain gid nga dominant hormones kaysa kag babae. Ha? Hormones play an important role during your reproduction. In which the testes secretes your hormones called your androgens, the most common in which is your testosterone. Kids, ang lalaki nag-produce ng androgens. Ang pinaka-common niya is your testosterone nga hormone. The hormone is responsible for your spermatogenesis or your formation of sperm, the development of the male primary sexual traits, growth of penis and other reproductive organs. The secondary sexual characteristics naman are growth of your beard, your pubic axillary hair, and development of muscles and vocal cords. So kids, kung mas damo inyo na testosterone hormones, mas dasig magtubo inyo maskulo, kag mas dalom inyo tingog. So kids, kung hindi mo nga mabalaan mo kung ang lalaki o babae tingog, therefore gamay ang concentration of testosterone while damo naman ang imong testosterone hormones, maskulado ka, and dalom ang imong tingog. So kids, ang roles ang ato na hormones in reproduction. Again, estrogen na ang tuman ang sa babayi, ang sa lalaki, androgens like your testosterone. Next, we will discuss your menstrual cycle. Again, ang menstrual cycle para naman niya sa mga females. Ha? So next, kids, we have your menstrual cycle. We now have discussed your types of different reproduction. Ano na ang mga reproduction niya na, and the hormones, and your different body parts. Next, we have your menstrual cycle na. The menstrual cycle, the capability for reproduction begins in females at the onset of your menstruation. So again, kids, kung wala pa ang babae naka-menstruation, they are not capable pa magbusong. But after menstruation, kids, capable na sila magbusong. The menstrual cycle begins at puberty and repeats the cycle every 26 to 30 days on the average until menopause. So kids, this only applies if you are a regular nga babae. But if you have irregular nga periods, kids, lain naman na ang iyong basihan. But regular nga schedules are only 26 to 30 days before mag-abot siya until you reach your menopause. Menopause occurs differently through different nga mga individuals. The end of the reproductive cycle of women is controlled by its hormones. So, gadepende man yapon sa inyong hormones. So, mas aga kagin tubuan sa imong hormones or nag-produce, mas aga man matapos imong menopause, kids. So, kung late ka na sudlan sa imong menstruation, of course, late naman ang imong menopausal. It consists of your two coordinated cycles, your ovarian cycle, and number 2, your uterine cycle. Ang ovarian cycle natin results in the release of your egg, and ang uterine cycle naman natin results in the build-up of your walls in the uterus to receive your embryo. Kids, kung may menstrual cycle ka, ang imong first cycle, ang ovarian cycle, ga-release ka sang egg to introduce a new egg naman. Ang uterine cycle naman naton, kids, para naman gatubo naman and gatiken ang aton wall para ma-receive nyo ang embryo if intercourse naga-occur. So kids, kung wala man may gatabo nga intercourse, ganipis man lang na ang wall sang inyong uterus. Ha? Ovarian cycle. First, as a female approaches puberty, the anterior pituitary gland starts to secrete your gonadotropic hormones or your FLH, your follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH rather, your follicle-stimulating hormone, and your luteinizing hormone, which signals the ovaries to become active. So again, kids, these two types of hormones are responsible para mag-signal sa ovary to become active. The follicle cells surrounding the egg start to grow under your FSH. Ang imo, kids, nga follicle cells dako para masignalan ang imo nga egg. That is why it's called follicle stimulating hormone. Again, gina-stimulate ya ang inyong follicle cells para masignalan ang egg. That is why it is called your follicle stimulating hormone. And ngaman gina-stimulate ya to produce your estrogen, your female hormones, which inhibits further secretion of your FSH during the first 12 days of your cycle. However, the increase in estrogen signals the releases the LH by your pituitary glands towards the middle of the cycle. Mga magamit LH na glands, it produces your luteinizing hormones, okay? About the 14th day sa inyong cycle. The LH triggers the release of one mature egg or ovum in your ovulatory phase, which could be fertilized if sperms are available at this time. Again, ma-fertilize lang siya if may sperm nga nagsulod sa lawas sang babae. If wala sang sperm, again, it is impossible for you to fertilize an egg. Towards the post-ovulatory stage, the corpus luteum produces your estrogen and progesterone, which prepare the walls of your uterus. So that is your menstrual cycle. Your estrogen, kids, is a type of female hormone that causes development of your secondary sexual traits. As per your testosterone sa males, estrogen naman sa females, such as the development of the breast and broadening of the hips together with the development of your uterine walls. Kids, mabalaan mo if ang babae is rich in estrogen if dako ang iya titi and malawak ang iya nga hips. But gamay na siya, kids, if you're usually flat-breasted and you have small waist. Kids, gadra man matanaw mo if abundant ang estrogen sa babae or hindi. So that is an hormone. Next, you have your testosterone is also produced by your adrenal cortex in females. This hormone is mainly responsible for adolescent growth spurt. Kung kids nga pag menstrual cycle nyo, gauna taas ang babae kaysa sa lalaki usually. Kaya pag onset sa ilang menstruation, matubuan sila sa testosterone sa may growth spurt sila. And the growth of the pubic hair under the arms in females. So kids, babalaan, yung babae naman, damo iya testosterone if grabe patubuon ang buhok sa ilok. Kagbalaan mo kung gamay testosterone sa babae kung wala siya natubuan sa ilok. Pero ang main yapon ng female hormone sa babae is your estrogen. Next, you have your uterine cycle. After the egg is released, your luteinizing hormone stimulates the remaining follicle cells to develop your corpus luteum, which secretes the steroids, progesterone, and estrogen. These steroids are required for the maintenance of your uterus. Again, your estrogen and progesterone are required for the maintenance of your uterus, although they inhibit the release of your FSH and your LH by the pituitary gland. If the egg is not fertilized, the corpus luteum degenerates about the 26 days. Again, kids, kung wala may sperm by fertilization nga occur, wala magsunod nga sperm sa babae at the 26th day sa imong nga cycle, naga-degenerate imong nga corpus luteum kung wala fertilization or sperm nga magsulod sa imo. This results in the decline of the steroids and the subsequent slowing of the uterine endometrium as menses. The new cycle begins and the follicle cells start to develop again. The new egg every menstrual cycle. Kaya nga wala fertilization tabu. So ihaboy ato ang daan nga egg kag may bag-o man nga egg masulod sa imong nga lawas. A few hours to several days before menstruation, some women occur what is commonly known as your premenstrual syndrome, characterized by fatigue, anxiety, depression, headache, or edema, and irritability. Ang mga kids din nagkatabo ang mood swings sa babae because of your PMS or your premenstrual syndrome. Kids, hormonal imbalance kamo sa inyo PMS because imbalance ang imong nga estrogen and your progesterone. Therefore, nagainit ulo mo, may headache ka, may edema ka, nagahilanat ka because it is through your hormonal imbalance. This ends a few hours after the onset of your menstruation. Ang iba na, dugay man, ang iba na, arte na lang na. Estrogen and progesterone imbalance has been suggested as the cause of mood swings and physiological changes during PMS. As you can see, kids, amoy siya ang young hormonal imbalance sa babae yung grabe init ulo nila. So, kita ang malalaki, kids, bayan ta lang sila, intindihon ta lang sila in these periods. Okay? Next, you have your menopause, kids. Kung menopause naman natin, tandaan nyo, kids, kung mag-menopause, kung you therefore cannot produce an offspring anymore. When a woman reaches middle age, the menstrual cycle becomes irregular and eventually stops. Menopause has set in. At this time, the ovaries become less responsive to your FSH and LH. Moreover, the number of follicle cells in the ovaries become less, resulting in the lowered reproduction of your estrogen. Gagamay na ang ato na estrogen or your female hormones. The decrease in estrogen level affects the temperature regulating center by the hypothalamus and may result in hot flushes and sweating episode. Kisa ang ibang kabuang man kitungod grabe gid ang pagdagdag sa nila estrogen because your estrogen is required sa females to run many emotions and to regulate your health. This may also result in headaches and depression and as experienced by some women. The ovaries, vagina, and breast and other reproductive organs may exhibit atrophy during menopause, meaning magambag mo atrophy is decreased in size. Decreased in size is or its quality of cells is atrophy. The symptoms of menopause may be alleviated by your hormone replacement therapy, HRT, of estrogens or duwangan ng estrogen cells. So HRT appears to reduce the risk of osteoporosis and cardiovascular disease. However, there is controversy in HRT use as it appears to increase the risk of certain types of cancer, although studies have not been conclusive about the subject. Again, this is only speculation. Ang HRT, harmful, but it is not proven still because it lacks data. Next, you have your pregnancy kids. If the egg is fertilized, the menstrual cycle is interrupted and no menstruation occurs because kids, ang itlog ninyo nag-fertilize. Ang itlog sang babae ha, hindi niya sang lalaki. The corpus luteum does not degenerate, thus the walls of the uterus remain thickened for embryo implantation. Membranes that develop around the embryo secrete your HCG or your human chorionic gonadotropin. Again, kids, tabo lang ni kids kung mag-fertilize ang egg. Kung wala sang fertilization nga nagatabo, hindi magbusong ang babayi, HCG will not be produced or your human chorionic gonadotropin nga hormone hindi siya mag-produce. So your HCG kids is an indication nga hormone kids nga pregnancy has occurs or gabusong na kamo, which signals the corpus luteum to continue function. So kids, anong gina-measure sa pregnancy test? Your HCG. Amo ni siya kids, ang human chorionic gonadotropin. Another organ, your placenta, is formed from your fetal and maternal uterine tissues. It provides food and oxygen to the developing embryo. Ang placenta, again, provides food and oxygen to your embryo or ang bata nyo. While carbon dioxide, nitrogenous waste are excreted through the mother's respiratory and excretory system. So kids, ang tae kagihi sang imo bata amo na ginaihi uman yung tae kung gabusong ka. The placenta also exists your progesterone and estrogens that help maintain the thickness of the uterine walls during pregnancy. In humans, the duration of your pregnancy or this gestation period lasts for about 280 days, 40 weeks, or 9 months. From the last mention, during this time, the ratio of your progesterone and estrogen changes in favor of your estrogen. Kids, tip lang. Gasugod lang inyo nga pregnancy from your last menstruation period, kids. Nagasugod siya from your last menstruation period or when the sperm is fertilized by the egg. That is where your gestation period starts. This stimulates the involuntary contractions of your uterine walls, contractions of labor. Moreover, oxytocin secretions by the pituitary glands of both mother and fetus increases, also stimulating your contraction of the uterus. These events occurs during the process of birth or your parturition. Milk production or lactation naman kids occur during pregnancy and also controlled by your hormones. Again, hormones man ni ang ga-control. Ano nga hormone ang ga-control sang prolactin? Asang inyo nga lactation? That is your prolactin nga hormone. Kids, prolactin, lactation, dapit-lapit sa so magabag ko. Anong hormone ang nag-produce ang breast milk? Prolactin sa nyo. Prolactin promotes milk production by the mammary glands. When a baby suckles, neural signals from the breast stimulate the secretion of your oxytocin by the posterior pituitary gland. This hormone stimulates contraction of the muscles of the breast, thereby injecting milk through the ducts of your mammary glands. So this is a picture of your extra embryonic membrane in the human embryo or your embryo sa bag-o nga life. Next, kids, your development, self-explanatory na lang na. You should read it lang as it is good to know, but don't worry, kids, hindi kami pag-memorizing. Okay, computer science as mga kamo. Again, kids, self-explanatory, good to know, ang managing butang ko di. Ha? So next, kids, we have your gametogenesis. Tandaan nyo sa gametogenesis, it is development of your gametes, specifically your spermatogenesis occurring in the testes and oogenesis in the ovaries. A comparison of the two processes is shown in your figure 4.7, which is here. This is your figure 4.7, comparison of your sperm and your eggs. So kids, hindi nyo yung pagtandaan ang iban as these are not necessary for you, your meiotic stages, your second, your first, the growth of your sperm, you do not need this. Basta ano nyo lang kids, maghambal kita, gametogenesis, this is the production of your gametes, specifically your spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Your spermatogenesis, kids, is the production of sperm, and your oogenesis is the production of your eggs in the ovaries. So, kids, ang muna nang inyo tandaan sa inyo, gametogenesis is the production of gametes, specifically your sperm, so spermatogenesis, and your production of your eggs in your oogenesis. OBS. Next, we have fertilization. The next phase in the development is the fusion of the egg and sperm. That is called your fertilization. Again, kids, the development or the fusion of your egg and sperm is called your fertilization. Kids, mag-combine ang sperm kag ang egg. That will produce your zygote. The zygote, kids, is the product of your fertilization. Fertilization activates the egg to start your cleaving. It may take place inside the reproductive tract or your internal fertilization. Or it occurs in water through your external fertilization. An example of your external fertilization is in your fishes and amphibians, and internal kung sa aton tao, for example, nag-develop sa sulod sang lawas na that is internal fertilization. Your two types of fertilization again are your internal and external fertilization. Next, you have your cleavage. Cleavage, kids. This step is characterized by rapid and repeated division of the fertilized eggs. Again, kids, this is not the cleavage that you're thinking of. This step is characterized by rapid and repeated divisions of fertilized egg, resulting in a multicellular blastula or your blastoderm with a cavity of your blastocoel and the cyst or lump formed by your fertilization. No growth occurs, so the cell of blastomere become increasingly smaller. However, blastular DNA increases since each of your blastomere possesses a nucleus. The rate and type of cleavage is affected by the amount of distribution of the yolk. For example, in birds with massive amount of yolk, only a small portion of the egg without a yolk or your active cytoplasm undergoes cleavage. Again, ang wala lang yolk that will undergo your cleavage. Ang mga yolks na, no, will not undergo cleavage. Cleavage occurs in the fallopian tube before implantation in the uterus in humans. If the cleaved egg is implanted in the fallopian tube instead, ectopic pregnancy occurs. Ang kids, mag-ectopic ka mo, your embryo will be aborted or mapatay and does not reach its full term. Okay? Again, if the cleaved egg naton, kids, is implanted in the fallopian tube. Again, masulod siya sa fallopian tube nyo. Instead, ectopic pregnancy will occur and the embryo is aborted and does not reach its full term. Gastrulation naman, kids. The three germ layers of the embryo are established by cell movements during gastrulation. From the surface layer of the embryo, a group of cells move inside the innermost layer of your endoderm through the middle layer of your mesoderm and your outermost layer of your ectoderm. From the endoderm until your ectoderm is formed by the cells remaining on the surface. One of the most common movement of cells inward is termed your invagination. The blastocells is eventually obliterated as a new cavity is formed, the gastrocell in your archenteron. The opening of your archenteron to the exterior is the blastospore, which eventually closes the cells destined to form the inner germ layers that have already moved inside. Kids, if you are confused, gastrulation natin, kids, it is the cell movement lang. Cell movement of the three germ layers. Malagay na siya kasi cell movement or ang hulag sa pathway of your 3 germ layers. Next, you have your organogenesis. Kids, ang tandaan nyo lang din sa organogenesis, it is the process of organ formation from the 3 germ layers. Process of organ formation from the 3 germ layers is called your organogenesis. You do not need to memorize all this complicated stuff sa organogenesis. You just need to memorize the process of organ formation from the 3 germ layers. What is it called? That is called your organogenesis. So kids, these are your organs derived from your germ layer. That is this function, your ectoderm, your mesoderm, epimer, mesomere, hypomere, and endoderm. Next, kids, we have your methods of birth control and your technology of birth control. Kids, ang technology of birth control, it is simply as it states. Ang pag-ubra sa aton sa birth control, how we did it and how we theorized it. First, the rhythm method involves the avoidance of sex from 10 to 17 of the menstrual cycle. Again, kids, this is commonly known as our calendar method. When a woman is supposed to ovulate an oocyte, the calendar method may be supplementary by the basal body temperature method based on the fact that there is a drop in body temperature on the day of ovulation. A sharp rise in the following body temperature should be recorded carefully daily. So kids, your rhythm method is also known as our calendar method, avoidance of sex from days 10 to 17 of our menstrual cycle. Kids, ang kids, ang lapit na ang dugo, hasta matapos ang dugo, ina-avoid mo ang sex. That is your calendar method or your rhythm method. Next, you have your IUD, your intrauterine device. Is a small plastic coil implanted in the uterus, kids. Do clamps na siya, kids, ang ato na IUD na ginasulod sa uterus ng babae through its vaginal opening. Although its mode of action is not clear, this device is to stimulate the white blood cells in response to the foreign material IUD in the uterus to produce substance toxic to the fertilized ovum. It also interferes mechanically with the implantation of the embryo. Kids, so in simple terms, ang IUD natin acts as a wall to prevent sperm fertilizing into the egg because our IUD is toxic to our sperm and egg. Therefore, no fertilization will occur 99% of the time when you insert an IUD into the vagina. It is one of the most recommended ways in your birth control. Next, you have your sterilization. Sterilization, kids, involves the cutting and tying of the vas deferens or your vasectomy, kids. Meaning, kids, mag-cut ka sa imong vas deferens, kids, ang supply nga pakadto sa imong kids nga semen sang sperm madula, meaning kids bisan may semen pa na ang imong penis, kids, hindi na wala na nakunod nga sperm, therefore you cannot impregnate a woman kung mag-undergo ka sa operation called your vasectomy if lalaki ka lang niya, because vas deferens is only located in your male reproductive system. And next, you have your fallopian tube naman. This is the female naman, kids, nga operation kung gusto mo hindi magbata. Your fallopian tube or tubial ligation tawag sa operation in males and females respectively. The process that prevents your fertilization. Kids, kinautod naman ng lining for your fallopian tube para hindi ka naman sang imo nga egg cells. Kids, the process of this prevents your fertilization in females. Next, you have your methods of birth control. You have your calendar method or your rhythm. You have your oral contraceptives or your birth control pills. You have your spermicides or sponges, gels, and foams. Ginapatay ang sperm chemically. And you have your condom and you have your IUD. Sila, kids, ang imo nga easy ways para mag-birth control. Yun sila mas cost-efficient sila. Mas cost-effective sila. Okay, barato lang sila. They can be bought at any time. And they are easy to use. Next, we have your operations, kids. You have your sterilization of your vasectomy, kids. Kumbaga, kung sa iba, pag ginakapon ang lalaki, bala. Next, you have your tubial ligation. Kung sa babae naman, it prevents egg from leaving and it has no side effects. Next, you have your withdrawal method or your coitus interruptus. Magambay kung coitus interruptus, kids, ang sex yun na interrupt. Kaya coitus, meaning yan, sex mo lang, di ba? It is the withdrawal of penis before ejaculation. That is your withdrawal method and it is not reliable. Again, kids, withdrawal method is not reliable. Na kids, ginatawag nga disgrasya. Di ba? Next, you have your STDs or your sexually transmitted diseases, or also called your venereal diseases, are amongst the most communicable diseases in the world. Some of the more common forms of STD are shown in your tables 4.3 or below. Again, kids, your syphilis. Treatment naman lang ni kids is penicillin, pero kids, masakit na siya ang syphilis, ha? A bacteria spread through your lymphatic or circulatory routes, primary chancre forms at site of infection that heals in about a month. During, where na siya kids nga damak-damak. Pagit, secondary stage follows the widespread rashes and influenza-like symptoms. Latent period may be to 20 years later in your lesion. After sa first period ni kids, abi nyo, dula ninyo syphilis, gali kinaglala sa after 20 years, sakit sa pibat, sigun kinagtigulang ka na, di ba la? Mayara na siya din sa dako-dako nga lesions consuming on larger parts ng inyong lawas. It damages the spleen, bone, liver, and brain, and that occurs in some cases kung gulgon. Again, kids, so be careful of your sex life. Kids, make sure gid nga permi ka tinlo kaging mo partner tinlo. Next, you have your gonorrhea or ang tulo. Kids, I don't need to explain ni masakit ni siya kung sa lalaki, but ang babae wala kagawa, may mabatsyagan kung may tulo ka. Amo lang gid siya kids, simply ang imong nga gonorrhea. Next, you have your chlamydia naman, kids. It is a bacterium, maybe asymptomatic. Mga asymptomatic kids, maybe hindi mo mabatyagan sa, but you are carrying your chlamydia. Kids, again, I am saying this para in your safety. Make sure to always be clean and your partner to always be clean, ha? Discharge and burning sensation during urination. Sabi mo, tulo pro chlamydia. It is common cause of non-gonococcal urethritis in males. And next, you have your herpes. Common naman siya, no need to explain. Di ba, balaan nyo na ako ng kids kung ano ang herpes, painful blisters na saan appear on your genitals. Kids, again, damak-damak nyo siya tanawon, kids, ang herpes. Next, you have your genital candidiasis. This is a yeast infection or a fungi infection. See, ang treatment is drugs. May kininom ka lang ni. Soreness, irritation, discharge, or common infuse may be asymptomatic. And mas mabaho siya, kids, ha? Again, genital candidiasis is foul in odor, meaning mabaho ni siya, kids, kapin pa sa vaginal areas ang babae, kids. So again, kung masimutan ka mga laki or babae na mabaho nga vagina, that is a strong indication that your partner or that person has genital candidiasis. And lastly, your AIDS, kids. Again, naman yung pinakadelikado, because it has no known cure yet. Hindi man siya kids makapatay si imo technically because it just breaks down your immune system as if wala ka na immune system, kids. So kung wala ka na immune system, iban nga sakit masulod sa imo, therefore mapatay ka. Diba? So AIDS, kids, is the most difficult sexually transmitted disease that you ever have if wala ka gahalo. Mild infection resembles mononucleosis, later lymph gland swell, and some neuropsychological disorder. Usually this leads to coma and death. So again, kids, sa mga diseases nga ni, make sure to always be clean, make sure to know your partner, and if possible, test your partner if hindi pa gid ka mo close kag gusto niyo na mag-sexual intercourse. So kids, I am informing you for your safety. Para sa ulihi, kids, you will have an easy life. That why ka na problema dayon nga ma-encounter. So, thank you, kids, for your time. And this will be our final module sa aton nga finals tumong. And good day.